Ever thought about like who keeps all the machines running, the ones that, actually make the world go round?
It's easy to forget about, yeah, the machinery behind everything we do.
Right. And today we're doing a deep dive on the folks who keep those machines humming. Industrial machinery mechanics.
These are the unsung heroes of, well, pretty much every industry you can think of.
Exactly. We're talking manufacturing, energy, everything. So without them, things would grind to a halt pretty quickly.
It'd be chaos.
Total chaos. So to guide us through this world, we've got some awesome insights from our friends at RoleCatcher. They gave us the inside scoop on what these mechanics actually do.
And it's not just about, tightening bolts all day, although I'm sure there's some of that.
Haha. Right. So let's dig in. First things first, what's the day-to-day look like for an industrial machinery mechanic?
Well, RoleCatcher paints a pretty diverse picture. From what they've gathered, it looks like there's a lot of variety, setting up equipment, troubleshooting problems, regular maintenance.
Mhm.
It's a mix of hands-on work and some serious problem solving.
Gotcha. So you need the skills, but you've also got to use your head. It's not just mindless labor.
Definitely not. And speaking of using your head, one thing that surprised me was RoleCatcher mentioned building accessories as a task.
Yeah.
Building, that sounds dot creative.
Yeah. I was curious about that too. Like, are we talking about customizing equipment?
Exactly. Apparently, companies need machines tweaked for their specific processes, and that's where these mechanics get to flex their creative muscles. They might modify existing equipment, even design and build completely new parts.
Wow. So it's not just fixing what's broken, it's about like optimizing and innovating.
That's exactly it.
Okay, so forget those dusty old stereotypes about mechanics. These are problem solvers, innovators, designers.
Absolutely. And RoleCatcher really emphasizes that whole problem-solving aspect, especially with all the tech advancements we're seeing these days. Automation, robotics, you name it.
It's a whole new world out there in those factories.
It is. This isn't, your grandfather's factory anymore. Today's industrial machinery mechanics are dealing with incredibly complex tech, and that just adds another layer of, well, complexity to their work.
So it's not enough to just know how to use a wrench anymore. You got to understand these intricate systems, diagnose issues with computerized controls. It's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, you've got to be adaptable, that's for sure. And that's something that RoleCatcher stressed, that need for continuous learning in this field. You've got to keep learning and stay ahead of the curve when it comes to new technologies.
Which makes sense. Technology changes so fast these days. Who can keep up?
I know, right?
But I guess in a way, that's also what makes this career path kind of exciting. There's always something new to learn. You're never really standing still.
Definitely. And that's what appeals to a lot of people. It's
Yeah.
hands-on, it's interesting, and it's always changing.
It's the perfect blend of like brawn and brains.
You got it.
But let's move on from the mental stuff for a sec and talk about the actual work environment. Where are these mechanical masterminds doing their thing? Is it all dark and greasy factories or what?
Well, it's a surprisingly wide range of places,
Oh,
actually.
yeah. Like what?
Factories and warehouses,
Yeah.
obviously. But RoleCatcher also mentioned construction sites, power plants, even high-tech labs. You never know where you might end up.
Okay, so maybe not your typical office job.
Nope.
And speaking of not typical, RoleCatcher mentioned working in the field. What does that even mean in this context?
Well, it can mean different things to different people.
Right, but for industrial machinery mechanics, what are we talking about?
Well, it could be traveling to some pretty remote places to, repair and maintain machinery for, let's say, mining operations or forestry, energy production, things like that.
So we're talking about like fixing giant excavators in the middle of nowhere or massive turbines out at sea.
Something like that. Maybe not always the most glamorous setting, but definitely an adventurous side to this career if that's what you're into.
Okay, I'll admit that part actually sounds kind of cool, but let's be real, it can't all be high-flying adventures and cutting-edge tech, right? A RoleCatcher did mention some of the less glamorous aspects of this job, like how physically demanding and potentially dangerous it can be.
Yeah, that's true. You're often working with heavy objects and in tight spaces. You need to be able to handle yourself.
So it's not for the faint of heart,
Not really.
but hey, no job's perfect. But
Exactly. It's all about finding the right fit. And that's what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive. We'll look at the pros and cons of this career path.
perfect. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
So we're back and ready to jump into the pros and cons of becoming an industrial machinery mechanic. Ready.
Ready to weigh those scales? Hit me with the good stuff first. What are we talking about perk-wise with this career path?
Well, RoleCatcher definitely highlighted the earning potential. This is a field where Your skills are in high demand, so you can command a pretty decent salary, often with, good benefits too.
Okay, so paycheck looking good. That's always a good start, right? But obviously there's going to be more to it than that. What else did RoleCatcher highlight?
Well, they were really big on the advancement opportunities. As you get more experience, you can specialize in certain types of machinery, move into management, maybe even start your own business if you're entrepreneurial.
Oh, so there's room to really build a career, not just stay in the same role forever.
Exactly. And then there's the job security we touched on earlier. It's a skilled trade. And like we said, the Bureau of Labor Statistics projects that the need for qualified mechanics is only going to increase.
Music to my ears. So we've got good earning potential, opportunities for advancement, and job security, pretty much everything you'd want in a career. But let's be honest, no job's perfect, right? RoleCatcher did mention some downsides. What are we looking at there?
Right. So one thing is, it is physically demanding work, like we mentioned before. Be prepared to be on your feet a lot, working in potentially loud, greasy environments.
So not exactly a desk job.
Yep.
What else should people be prepared for?
Well, the hours can be long and irregular. If you're working in manufacturing, for example, those plants often operate 24/7, so be prepared for evening shifts, weekends, maybe even being on call for those middle-of-the-night emergencies.
So we've got to be flexible.
Definitely. And another thing is, this isn't a career where you can just, learn a few things and then coast. Technology is always changing, right? So you got to be willing to constantly learn and adapt to keep up.
Always be learning. Makes sense in this field.
For sure. Otherwise, you get left behind.
What does that look like practically, though? Are we talking about going back to school for every software update or?
Not necessarily back to school, but RoleCatcher did emphasize the importance of, actively seeking out professional development opportunities, whether that's official training courses, certifications, or even just keeping up with industry publications and stuff like that.
So always reading the latest and greatest, basically.
Pretty much. But hey, could be worse, right?
Yeah. True enough. Keeps things interesting, although it does sound like this is a job with a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, which can be stressful. Would you say that's accurate?
It can be, yeah. RoleCatcher specifically mentioned that you're often dealing with expensive equipment, deadlines, the pressure to keep things running smoothly.
Yeah.
It can definitely be a lot to handle.
But for someone who thrives under pressure, who likes that kind of challenge and responsibility.
That can be a perfect fit.
Exactly. So for those who think they've got what it takes, let's talk about the path to becoming an industrial machinery mechanic. Where do you even begin? So say someone's listening to this thinking, okay, this sounds like my kind of gig. Where do I sign up? What's the first step towards becoming an industrial machinery mechanic?
Well, RoleCatcher's got some pretty good advice on that, and it might not be what you expect.
Oh, like what?
Well, a lot of people think, oh, mechanics, you don't need school. You just got to tinker around with stuff. But that's not always the case, right? Some employers actually do want you to have some formal education, like a degree in mechanical engineering or something like that.
Sure, that makes sense. But what about the more hands-on route? How do you get experience without, already having experience?
That's where apprenticeships come in. RoleCatcher really emphasized those as a way to break into this field. You learn from experienced mechanics, get those practical skills, make connections. It's a great way to get your foot in the door.
Apprenticeships, that's a classic. So you're learning on the job, getting paid to train.
Pretty much. And you're building a network, which never hurts.
No, not at all. But say you're not fresh out of school. Maybe you're looking for a career change later in life. Is there room for that in this field?
Definitely. RoleCatcher says that if you've got any experience that involved, problem solving, working with your hands, even just some basic mechanical aptitude, that can all be valuable.
So it's not like you need to start from scratch, necessarily.
Right. You can leverage what you've already got.
Okay. So you've learned the ropes, maybe completed an apprenticeship. What happens next? How do you move up in the world of industrial machinery mechanics?
Well, RoleCatcher maps out a pretty clear progression. You usually start with entry-level jobs, assisting senior mechanics, doing routine tasks, just kind of getting a feel for things. And as you gain experience, you get more responsibility, more specialized roles.
Oh, so you could end up specializing in a particular type of machinery, becoming the go-to person for, I don't know, hydraulic systems or something.
Totally. Or robotics, automation, you name it. You might even find a specific industry really clicks with you, too.
Right, like the manufacturing example we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Or energy. Or get this theme park maintenance.
Wait, really? Theme parks need industrial machinery mechanics?
Apparently so. Think about all the rides, the animatronics.
Mm.
Someone's got to keep all that running smoothly.
Okay, that actually sounds like a pretty cool gig. Fixing roller coasters. Now that's something I could get behind.
Right.
But okay, let's say you found your niche. You're ready to land that dream job. That's where the interview comes in, and that can be nerve-wracking no matter how experienced you are. Does RoleCatcher offer any help on that front?
Oh, for sure. They've actually got a ton of resources for that, like practice questions, tips on how to dress, how to present yourself. They even have this really cool AI resume builder.
Hold on, an AI resume builder. Like, it writes your resume for you.
Basically, you just put in your information and skills, and it creates a resume tailored to the specific jobs you're applying for.
Wow. So no more stressing over every word trying to make yourself sound amazing?
Exactly. It takes all the guesswork out of it. Plus, because it's AI-powered, it's always learning, staying up to date on all the latest trends in resume writing and stuff like that.
So it's like having a personal resume writer and career coach all rolled into one.
Pretty much.
It sounds like RoleCatcher really has thought of everything to help people succeed in this field.
They really have. It's pretty impressive.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the ins and outs of becoming an industrial machinery mechanic, what they do, the pros and cons, how to get started, how to move up the ladder. And we've got to give a huge shout out to RoleCatcher for being such a fantastic resource for anyone interested in this career path.
Definitely. They make it clear that, these mechanics are vital. They keep the world running.
Absolutely. So if you're looking for a career that's challenging, rewarding, and always in demand, industrial machinery mechanic might just be the perfect fit.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And on that note, we'll wrap things up for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Hopefully, we've given you some things to think about. Until next time.